Welcome to the Film is Science, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier grants the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my corporal friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines. Some recent episodes include 21 Jump Street, Superbad, Monkey Man, The Green Knight, and Civil War. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas over on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe for $1. Come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we are discussing Sam Mendes' 2019 film, 1917.
It's a lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers. I'm conflicted about this movie. This might be the most paint-by-numbers movie I've ever seen. I like this movie. I had a good time watching it, but I'm having a hard time sorting some things out. Maybe we can clear some things up. But this feels like a movie from someone who just got out of film school, was handed several tens of millions of dollars, and was dead set on this gimmick of this one shot. It's maybe always admirable and attractive when someone attempts this. I haven't seen it very many times, but it's an extremely distractive technique. But I will say its most sensible use I've seen so far is probably 1917, following the boys on their mission, but it still holds everything back. I know you're not a big fan of war films, so here you go. Here's a big war film from 2019, award-winning war film. How do you feel about 1917?
I was really impressed with this movie. You're right, I am not a big fan of war movies. At least I don't think I am. I haven't seen many, and out of the ones I've seen, most war movies tend to focus on World War II. So now we're limited even more on the World War I genre, which is probably the most gruesome and dirtiest of the two world wars. So I like that in that aspect. But I was very sold on this movie. I thought at least the technicality behind all the cinematographic stuff was pretty good. I thought the acting from our two boys here was pretty great. I really liked the pacing. And overall, I thought it was a very suspenseful film, along with the score and the soundtrack, just added to that emotional suspense. So, I'm sold. I'm not with you on when you said that you were distracted by the technique. Is that the one specifically where it's supposed to look like it was all shot in one take, in one go?
Yeah. The one-shot gimmick doesn't allow the camera to help build the tension or alleviate it. We're at the mercy of being this drone behind these guys. It can be very beautiful. There are some really amazing sequences throughout this film, which help build this manipulation. Because tell me anything about these characters, right? And especially towards the end, we have this really amazing soundtrack step up. But why do you care about this character? Because he saw the cherry blossom leaves and was motivated, and we were reminded, oh, Blake's mom owns an orchard of cherry blossoms. And ultimately, I think the one-shot gimmick holds Sam Mendes and our characters from thinking, really, and expressing really what they're growing through. Not to mention, we have this 1, 2, 3 of these sergeant, lieutenant type characters coming in to remind you that we're in these 3 acts. We have this super parallel bookends of Schofield sitting by the tree. It's much more dull and dead, in the second tree. It feels like the kind of movie that was made by someone who understands the outline of storytelling, doesn't understand characters, and maybe wants your imagination to do some of the work, but doesn't really give us anything to work with. And I think this has a lot to do with its one-shot nature.
All right. I'm going to disagree with you here. Maybe I'm a victim to the gimmick, but I really liked it. I thought it did help add that suspense and edge of your seat feeling, because it's like you're walking behind them. You're not really exploring anything else that's around them, and it might not give you that intimacy with the characters themselves. There's not a lot of dialogue here, there's not a lot of emotion here, but just that closeness with the camera, I think, helps build some of that relationship. And I think you might be right that he does expect us to do a little thinking here and making some assumptions behind our characters. This is a war setting. There's not a lot of time to get to know each other in that way. Throughout the movie, or really, I guess I can only think of one specific scene that helps add a little character, and that's when, after that dogfight, that German crashes and he's on fire, and then one of the boys says, "Let's kill him and put him out of his misery," and the other boy says, "No, let's give him some water." So that, I don't know, that kind of helps you start to think what kind of people these 2 boys are. Unfortunately, one of them gets killed right after, so it's good that the other one thought, let's kill him, because maybe he's got more of a fighting mentality. And is it manipulative, this kind of technique? A little bit, because of that almost one line of thinking with the one character you're with. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It at least helped me with that sense of urgency that I felt throughout this whole movie. And then you ask, why are we supposed to care? And I think a big message in this whole movie is not only that one individual has the power to save lives, but also that this movie is trying to stop fighting. I'm not sure how that ties in with this one shot in all style. That style definitely helped the sense of urgency, but it didn't help that message of, I don't know, individuality, having that power. So maybe that choice was just more for the adventure side of it than the actual moral or the actual lesson, whatever you're trying to get out of this film.
You're exactly right. The one-shot gimmick exposes, not necessarily a bad thing, but exposes the focus of the movie, which is the urgency. No doubt. But at the sacrifice of the most important atrocities that happen at war, the loss of lives and the effects that have on people. And I must say, Sam Mendes doesn't pretend to care about these characters. They're not what's important. They don't have much personality. They have no real rhyme or reason why they are going on this mission, why these 2 particular guys are going on this mission, which puts the significance and importance of the mission in the question, because you'd think maybe more competent, experienced soldiers would be in charge of this. To go across miles of enemy territory and deliver a message of this magnitude to whatever character Benedict Cumberbatch was. A sergeant, general,
Colonel.
lieutenant, colonel, I don't know. One of them. The president, I don't know. It's a bold choice. There's no doubt about it. And I can't blame anyone for being charmed by it. And it no doubt does not make this movie bad. I had a great time with this movie. I just feel like the potential was really awesome if we could just not focus so much on the long takes, maybe. Because I hate to say it, there are probably 15 or 20 edits or so throughout the film. And once you kind of noticed where they were hidden, they become so obvious that they become distracting. You start looking for them. And is that a problem, or is that just like a little OCD thing that comes out of some viewers? It affects the experience, no doubt. And when you're all cinematography and no character, no plot, the gimmick starts to wear off. The magic totally dissipates. Because I can't help but to think how powerful that scene would have been where Blake dies. A slow death of him. Just that one static shot sitting on him, waiting for that cut, you know? Letting you take a breath. But instead, at this point in the film, we've been trained to not let the work of the camera have much of an effect on us.
I think part of this is that Sam Mendes is trying to portray how war would have felt or could feel to an individual. It's very subjective to what Schofield is going through. And again, with that urgency behind the war that you don't have time to think or process. You have to go, especially with this message. I don't agree with you that there's no plot to this movie. The plot to this movie is the lengths that an individual is willing to go to save lives. In this case, he was saving 1,600 lives if he were to deliver this message. I don't think Sam focuses on the deaths and the lives lost, because I think he's trying to focus on the lives saved. And I also disagree with you with the two boys that got picked, which I think is maybe one of my favorite lines from the movie. So Blake gets picked because his brother is part of the troops that are about to get massacred. So maybe there's some kind of manipulation there. You need to go tell your brother. I don't know how incompetent these boys are. I don't really know war titles and that kind of stuff. So I don't know how high in the ranks they are. But Blake's given the choice to take anybody he wants with him. And he takes his friend.
Doesn't Blake say that he didn't know what the job was for?
Yeah, he didn't know what the job was for until they were both called there. Which, yeah, that's one of my favorite lines. Right after that rat goes through the tripwire, which that was insane, but whatever. Another point to that. And he's like, why did you have to choose me? He's like, I'm sorry. I was choosing you because you're my friend. And then that adds on to, this is war. There's no rhyme and reason to why these things happen. This is life. This is just what it is. I don't think this war story, and again, I'm not too familiar with war stories, but I feel like a lot of them focus on the loss of life and loss of innocence, and maybe also some have that romantic aspect of leaving behind a family or leaving behind a sweetheart or whatever, and that's nowhere near in this movie.
Okay. So I completely disagree with the loss of innocence not being here. That is central to Schofield's landing point, especially with the bookend kind of parallels of him sitting by the tree in the beginning and end. It's not bad. I like the mirror imagery in film. It's very nice. Just in this particular movie, it's a little club right across the head of just in case you didn't realize that he's now going to process what happened to his friend. Okay, that's fine. And that war changes you kind of thing. And you hit on one of the central notes of why I wanted something more out of specifically Schofield. And it's that he didn't want to come. And now the mission is left with him. Does he have this decision to go back? Does he literally? I don't know. If he goes back, is that going to be some kind of abandoning the mission and he's going to be put in prison? I don't know what goes on in the military.
No clue. A discharge for being...
Yeah. But it begs for some kind of internal thing. You know?
But there's no time for the internal thing.
I mean, maybe, because the urgency is hard to get away from. We
Yeah.
have less than, 24 hours. Very short amount of time to get from point A to point B. And it may just be me wanting some kind of humanity injected in it. And probably many other people wanting it too. Just because war, and especially these boys, because they're good friends. And we have this kind of conflicting nature in them. Blake wants to get this message over there to save his brother, wants to get his medals, and Schofield definitely doesn't want to do the mission, doesn't care about the medals.
Yeah, he traded his for wine.
Yeah. We're just begging to peel back a little more on these guys. Just a little bit more.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think there's a lot of imagination that needs to go behind how these characters are feeling. And I think that's where a little bit of the performances come in.
Which are solid, I will say.
Which is what I think helps sell it to me, how I'm supposed to be feeling alongside with him. But I don't know, like that sense of urgency and that anxiousness. I mean, it was so intense that I didn't even have time to be sad about Blake dying, or at the end, I didn't have that sense of relief that you typically have with a movie like this. He got the message, he stopped, he saved lives, whatever. I didn't get that because I was so just on the edge of my seat the whole time. Which, if that was the point,
Oh, definitely.
then it got it done. And I don't know, I liked it because of that. I didn't have to process anything. I didn't have to feel exhausted. Just anxious as fuck, but not exhausted.
I feel you, and you really beautifully get that moment of processing or starting the process Blake's death when he has to tell Robb Stark of Game of Thrones what happened to his brother.
That's where I knew him from.
Yeah, that's where you know him from. It's great. It's very objective. We're not getting any close up on Robb Stark character, whoever that is. Blake's brother.
Blake, the other Blake.
The other Blake. And it initiates that first phase of grief.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time we hear their first names, too. Will and Tom.
Just another good point of how intimate this film is. And I must say, it's a really great example to study of what kind of sacrifices are made for different centerpieces and focuses.
Yes, agreed. Because you have to appreciate the technical skill that went behind shooting something like this, no doubt. I think I read that, or I saw in an interview that the longest take they did was 9 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't know if that was long or not, but digging into it, it's actually pretty crazy long.
I mean, any several minute take is a marvel. There's no doubt about it. I guess it just comes with a cost. And it's such a funny negotiation and balance because I can't think of another scenario more suited for a one take kind of film than some kind of mission during war.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is something very impersonal about war. There is something very documentary oriented about war.
Yeah.
But at the exact same time, there's something very personal about it too. And it's just such a funny thing, I guess. Because maybe it is important that they chose Blake to go save these others to kind of squeeze him into feeling like he has to do it to save his brother.
Nothing to pressure you like having to go save your family member, you know what I'm saying?
And there's something deeply sad about Schofield telling other Blake about the cost of younger Blake, Corporal Blake, to save Lieutenant Blake and friends and crew. Comrades. But at the same time, we're dealing with two guys going across this enemy territory. Makes it small, right? It's a challenging thing, I guess. I didn't expect that from this movie. And I will say World War I is the most visually striking war. Their battlefields, their trench battlefields, make nuclear explosions look like child's play. They're so desolate. It's amazing looking. And I love the grime, like you've mentioned. It's one of the reasons I love the new remake of All Quiet on the Western Front. And like you said, it's hard to not admire the planning and production that went into this.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I mean, I love the choice of making this a World War One film and shooting in the trenches. I mean, I can't imagine shooting in the trenches. I can't imagine filming there. It's so tight, it's so compact, it's so maze-like, and it's visually striking. I loved it. I loved it too. I didn't watch All Quiet on the Western Front, the new one. I didn't know there was an old one, but I didn't watch either of them. I guess I watched maybe the first 10 minutes, and I wasn't a fan. Maybe it requires a rewatch from me and some time. Because was it in another language? I don't remember, but maybe I just wasn't feeling like reading subtitles that day and missed my chance to watch it with you. But the first 10-15 minutes I saw, and maybe a few glimpses towards the end, that movie looked a little bit dirtier than this movie. This movie looked a little too beautiful. I'm not gonna say clean, but maybe just pretty.
All Quiet on the Western Front looks way brutal. Looks like a nightmare, really. Which is a beautiful film in its own right, but this is like, I want to say like Hollywood beauty, really.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of sterile, but not bad. Not sterile in a bad way, but just all that dirt's placed just right kind of thing.
little smudge near your eye, make you look pretty. But yeah, which I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Again, with the whole spin on making this into more of a life-saving movie than a loss of life-saving movie, from my point of view. But I do appreciate the just gruesome and grueling images from the movie. One of my favorite scenes is in the beginning, which I think that helped solidify that I would like this movie. And it's when they're running across no man's land and he hurts his hand, and then like a few seconds later, that same hand he hurt was pushed into a decaying body, and now he had an open wound in a decaying body. And oh my god, it was so visceral, and it was so cool, and it was just crazy. I mean, that whole shot right there maybe sold this whole movie for me. And just the gore behind it, I don't know if gore is the right word, but just that nastiness and like, oh my god, you're gonna die, that's gonna get infected, like you're fucked, dude.
Yeah, it's like accidental gore because he accidentally stabbed himself on the barbed wire, and then he like slipped into a rat-infested decaying body. It's like, oh shit, you just accidentally wasted your life.
Yeah, that was good. That was awesome.
I will say the intro and outro were my favorite parts. Yeah, where Schofield was in around both trenches. Yeah,
like when he was running across
mm-hmm.
the trench, then up on the battlefield and pushing people, and then coming back down. Yeah, that was awesome. Apparently, that scene was big in the trailers, so people felt like that was taken out of context. I don't know. I saw a lot of comments where people were talking about this scene and just how out of context it was taken.
In the trailer?
In the trailer.
I mean, everything in the trailer is out of context. The trailer is what, 2 minutes long? A minute and a half? Everything is out of context.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
We can't make Netflix style trailers and just tell you the whole thing in like 5 minutes.
Please don't.
I mean, we can. They do it all the time.
That's true.
And that's sometimes my favorite way to watch a Netflix movie. But it's still out of context.
But no, that was awesome. Again, a little too beautiful, but that was awesome. I also really liked all the sets, which we briefly mentioned, the trenches and just the desolation of the empty land. But I really liked the sequence when he's in that ruined town. And I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like that. I can't really explain how it made me feel, but it just felt like I was watching a bad dream through his eyes. Like all the lighting was just crazy. The sets looked crazy. All the structures felt like they were just perfectly, beautifully, maze-like placed, like a stage, like a theater almost. And the score that was playing behind while all this was going, it was very insane. It was awesome to watch.
No, I totally agree. It helps separate the character from a real world. There is this emphasis on the mission, the urgency, obviously. And that section does kind of support that separation and denaturalizing it. It feels very alien. It feels surrealistic, really. That whole section's pretty surrealistic.
Yeah, it was very haunting and maybe melancholic.
Because there was this dreamlike thing where he woke up into it. It's kind of ironic to say it, I guess, but because you would assume there would be some kind of very deeply subconscious personal things coming through that. But Sam Mendes does do a good job at not letting our minds wander too much. There's not enough imaginative things happening to let us think about our characters, like you said. So it really is an interesting challenge and balance where he's given us just enough to feel for these characters, right? They're in war. Of course, you feel for people putting their lives at risk like that. They've got families. Blake's got a mom, a brother they're going to save. Schofield doesn't want to be there. Now the Call of Duty is set in. But at the same time, we're reminded these boys really aren't important beyond the mission, which is just such a funny space to be in because it is and isn't true.
Right.
Of course, we should sacrifice an individual to save 1,600 in a time of need.
It's like that train question.
But it's an impossible question to really ask in earnest.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So it's a funny thing. Again, I like the movie quite a bit. It's a little overrated, I will say.
The movie?
Yeah. It's a little overrated. But it is such an interesting production. There's no way around it. There's really good arguments on both sides. They all the arguments on each side probably say the same thing from one another, but the urgency versus the intimacy is an interesting balance.
Yeah, it really comes down to your experience with the movie. Maybe this would be more classified as an action movie than, a drama. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, sure.
I do want to give a shout out to the score, the soundtrack, and the sound design. I thought all were pretty great. I kind of wish maybe I would have seen this at the movie theater because you would have felt everything. I was reading that some of the actual explosions and gunfire and whatnot were real sounds from actual explosions and gunfire, which that's pretty cool. I don't know how often that happens in war movies, but it sounded cool to me. And I really liked the song that guy was singing at the end. It's called I Am a Poor Wayfaring Stranger, and it was pretty good. It's like in my mind.
Yeah, him running into that group of soldiers really runs home that surrealistic kind of thing, that dreamlike thing, because just coming out of that city. The score reminded me a lot of a Christopher Nolan film. I thought it was going to be Hans Zimmer, but it's not. It was Thomas Newman.
Yeah, this had too many piano pieces for it to be.
Not enough horns.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It gave me that same kind of energy, though, which is cool. The music is one of the big contributors into the level of manipulation across all film, right? And it's such a funny thing because the music sells the bigger than life kind of thing, which helps this urgency, which helps this pawn just doing his mission and saving all these lives to do something bigger than himself because he doesn't matter. But at the same time, it's powerful music, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you feel for the individual.
Yeah.
Can't get away from it. But yeah, it's very cool. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for watching this movie with me. I'm glad you like a war movie now. There's some really good ones out there.
Really?
All Quiet on the Western Front, probably the best war movie.
Okay. Another one?
Platoon, Paths of Glory, Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
Apocalypse Now.
All right. I'll try one of those. The only other one that I'm like thinking of is Dunkirk.
Dunkirk's very cool. It's just a frustrating movie to watch because it's like, why are these so spliced together like this? It's so over the top and kind of ridiculous in the worst way possible. Do you have a budget guess for me for 1917?
Yes. My budget guess is 100 million.
It's a war movie, right?
It's a war movie. Yeah, that's it. That's really it.
They gotta be expensive.
I don't know if Sam Mendes is an expensive guy or what else he's done, really, but
I think he did the recent James Bond movies. He's probably most famous, at least until 1917, for American Beauty. Very great movie.
so he's got money.
He's got some leverage for sure.
Okay.
And it says here that it was 90 to 100 million. I'd say you're right in the pocket.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And it went on to make 384.6 million. So decent money.
Holy crap. That's great.
Yeah.
You're right. It's very well liked.
And with 1.61 million people, lots of people, they did not go see it at the theaters. I promise you that. Those numbers are not reflective. They weighed in at a 4.1.
4.1.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a little high, right?
It's a little high. I'm giving it a 3.5. I was debating between a 3.5. I definitely wouldn't go higher than a 3.5. I just liked how anxious it made me feel. Suspense movies are good, but it was like a different type of suspense. You know, not like your shark movie suspense or your crawl movie suspense. It was a different type of suspense, and I liked it.
Of course, it was the reciprocal. You weren't waiting for someone to come get you, for someone to come bite the leg off of your main character. You're waiting for your character
To die.
to get to the other side, you know?
To get got.
He was the chicken trying to get across the road.
Yep. Exactly.
I'm on the other side of that with a 2.5, but I think I'm sticking with a 3. There's a lot here that's very cool, and it's very fun. All right, man. Well, thanks again, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on patreon.com/Filmistines, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rest in Pieces, Google Podcasts. You'll be missed. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe for $1. Tell your friends. Come request a movie. Come write in, please.
Please.
We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very, very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching, keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines, signing off.